Like, this read me personally, and I was like, how did you get into my house? Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute. I'm not going to do the whole spiel of like, oh, it's been so long, I'm so back on my YouTube grind. You know, I said this many times before, I don't like to force content. Sometimes I just need a break. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, which is my main platform, by the way, and now with TikTok kind of leaving, you already know I actually went and did an Umrah trip. I have been super busy. That took up so much of my time, but so worth it. I would go back in a heartbeat. But now I'm back. I'm trying to get back on my content game, and that includes my YouTube videos. Hopefully 2025 will be a much more consistent year for me. Fingers crossed. As always, thanks for watching my videos. Thanks for being so patient with me. And today we are doing my 2024 reading wrap up. Wow, I can't even believe the year's ending. That's wild to me. This year has flown by, and in terms of a reading year, not a bad year for me at all. I was actually like in preparation for this video going through like all the books I've read, and I genuinely don't think I rated anything lower than like, did I rate anything lower than 3 stars? That one I'd have to check, but I don't think I did. Yes, nothing lower than 3 stars. I did give something no rating. I've done no ratings before, but like compared to last year where I had some like horrendous reads last year, I didn't come out of this year with any books where like, oh, I absolutely hate this book. And I'm calling that a win. A win is a win. That's a win. Before we get to the negatives, let's talk about the positive. Before we even talk about the positive, let's talk about how many books I read this year. So, it is December 19th, the damn boom. December 19th, 2024. I have read 128 books. Hold on. So my reading goal for the year was 100 books, so I met my reading goal. Thank you. Thank you very much. In comparison to other years, I don't even compare to other years. As long as I hit my reading goal every year, I'm happy. Even when I don't hit my reading goal, as long as I'm reading, I'm a happy gal. But 128 books, that comes over to over 34,000 pages. Thank you, Goodreads and Storygraphs, for giving me that information, because I wouldn't know that. We're going to go through some of my top reads that I've already like talked about on my TikTok and posted on Instagram. But I'm going to discuss them a little bit more in depth with you guys, as well as go through some of these amazing statistics Storygraph puts together for you for free if you have an account. Goodreads, I'm not so impressed with its graphics, but so let's talk some of my top reads. You already knew she was going to be here. It's no secret, no surprise to anyone that Emer is one of my top reads of the year. And by the way, there is no order to this in the order I'm showing them. I have claimed all of these as my top reads of the year. No order. These are it. It's just it. That's it. It's so much to hear. I don't know what else to say. Like, Emer in the Ashes, incredible series. This book taking place 20 years after Emer in the Ashes. Also so incredible. You get so attached so easily to the new characters, and seeing your favorite characters 20 years in the future. Oh, this book was everything. I think I read it in one night. My spoiler thoughts are already on my Instagram. We did a live. Me, Azanta, and Tahra did a live. So, yeah. Like, I feel like I can't even say anything about this book, because it just is. You hear Emer, you hear someone to hear it, and you just know. You know? We know. And I call myself a book reviewer. I could not get 2 words out. Moving on to another one of my top reads of the year, The Maid and the Crocodile. If you guys have heard me talk about my top reads of my lifetime, you know I never fail to bring up Raybearer. Jordan does not miss. I am so sorry. Like, that's just how it is. I have not read a single book by her that has ever let me down. Raybearer is one of my top reads of all time. This book, like Emer, takes place in the original world of its first series sometime later. Not as much as Emer, not 20 years later. So we pick back up in this world. So you can read this book like separate from Raybearer. It's just gonna spoil some things for Raybearer for you. Do what you want. This book, incredible. Commentary on the working class, on social classes, the romance, the action, the character development, the strength in this book, incredible. I wish I had more coherent thoughts about my favorite books of the year. All I can say is incredible. And that, what are you doing if you're not reading these books? Love Theoretically. One of my first reads of the year. One of my first ever review of the year. Something useful I got out of my Goodreads graphic. My first review of the year, all I said was, I would like to thank everyone who recommended this one. Which is very, very calm for how I actually feel about this book. This book simultaneously, like, ruined me and then also changed my entire life. Like, I reread it already this year, so I've read it twice this year. And the second time, I, like, texted a couple of my friends and I was like, hey, I'm rereading Love Theoretically. If you're wondering how I'm doing mentally, that's where I'm at. And they were like, are you okay? And I'm like, no. I need coherent thoughts, guys. Like, this has to be, like, a coherent YouTube video. I'm a reviewer. Let's just say this. I see a lot of myself in the main character, let's say that, and I see a lot of what I think I want in a person in Jack. And it's devastating. It's both, like, enlightening and devastating. Because Jack sees Elsie so clearly, and I'm like, when is someone gonna see me? It's very, very emotional. And I had to get this beautiful special edition. If you don't know, this is not the actual cover of the book. This is the Illumicrate Afterlight edition, which I worked so hard to get my hands on, and she's finally mine. And she's gorgeous, and she's purple, and purple's my favorite color. This book, yeah, I can't talk about it enough. So I will say, it might not affect everyone that way, and that's really, like, up to you, and that's fine. But for me, this was life-changing. Like, this read me personally, and I was like, how did you get into my house? So good. Oh, I cannot take myself seriously. Speaking of books that ruined me, I'd like to report this one right here, officer. This is the sequel to Last of the Talons, which I talk about endlessly. I love Last of the Talons. I love Sophie so much. Sophie is hellbent on ruining my life, though, with this book. And I actually just requested the third one on NetGalley, which if I don't get, someone and I are gonna have to exchange words over the Entanglement, if you're watching. This is the sequel to Last of the Talons, which is a YA fantasy, which is fantastic. And you know what? Last of the Talons is so good. I've read it in one sitting multiple times. And then you pick up this book and you're like reading this book and you're just like, wait, like we're running out of pages and things aren't getting resolved, like what's happening? And then your heart just like really, really hurts. And then you realize like the book's over and you're like, holy crap, how did we end up here? And it's truly, I just got full body chills thinking about it. I kid you not, my whole body right now just erupted into chills. Because I am not normal about this book, or the series, or these characters, and low-key Sophie's ruining my life. But I'm more than willing for that to happen. This series is incredible. I do really highly recommend this series. However, for the sake of your own sanity and mental health, I recommend you wait until all the books are out if you want. Like, you don't have to do that, but for me, why am I shaking? If you don't want to be wrecked and ruined the way I've been wrecked and ruined and have it prolonged, like you want closure right away, the last book's coming out soon. The last book's coming out next year, and you could just read them all back to back. That's what I recommended Azanta do. So Azanta saw my reaction to this book. She's like, I'm waiting for the third one to come out before I read this. And I was like, you're so smart. I could never. I generally don't know if it's a coffee I had right before this or the actual like reliving these books in my head that's making me this shaky. I don't know. I should hydrate. Moving on to my other favorite books of the year, and the Sky Blood. This book I've talked about so many times. This is the first time I've ever blurbed a book, which was really exciting and also I think indicative of how high my praise is for this book. It's the first time I've read a climate fantasy. I really think a really good way to describe it, I talked about on live the other day with Ellie, was like apocalyptic climate crisis fantasy. This book is so dark, so powerful, so intense, and there's like a very, very subplot of romance, but it was so good, and even as just such a like subtle subplot. I loved it, and you should all go read it right now. Alright, these last two books I'm kind of grouping together. These are the rest of the series of the Gilded Ones. So this is book 2 and 3 of the Gilded Ones series. I don't know if that's the actual series name. That's what I'm calling it. I think it is. I said this before when I reviewed these books like formally. I don't know why it took me so long to finish the series. These are incredible. I read the Gilded Ones back in 2020, 2021, whenever that book first came out a couple years ago, is when I read it, and I can't believe it took me this long to finish the series. This one just came out 2024, so that one was a little bit understandable, but like this one, best what was I doing? Incredible. I cannot explain to you how well written this series is, how the twists and turns truly come out of nowhere, how intricate and in-depth the world building is. I felt like I was there with the characters, and so good. Like, at a loss for words is how good it is. That's my review. And last but never least, Sunbolt by my queen into Kanani. You guys have heard me rant and rave about Thorn, Theft of Sunlight, and The Darkness of the Door by Kanani. I love that series. It's somewhere. It's back here behind the pins, and then Darkness of the Door is somewhere at the top. Sunbolt was her first series actually ever out, and it recently got republished under a new publisher. She originally, I forgot who they originally published under, if she self-published with them originally. Anyway, the sword also, quite literally, never misses. Sunbolt and Memories of Ash are both already out, and they're so good. And I feel like I need better words in my vocabulary. I need to expand the vocab bank somewhere on the screen, because I need a better word than good, but truly, she writes so consistently out of a lot of authors I know. I think Episode is the most consistent in writing characters that I love, in writing worlds that I love, in writing plots I quickly get attached to. And I implore her to never stop writing, because I will read whatever she puts out as long as she writes. I do have some other top reads that I don't have physical copies of yet. Some of those are The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. Is her last name? I'm doing it on top of my head. Look how impressive. A lot of people recommended that one to me this year. I read it on audiobook. Incredible. Also a little bit too, like, stared into my soul how they do that type of book, but so good. I cried my eyes out at the end. And then in terms of manga, because I finally read manga this year, we have the Haiku manga. I would definitely rate it as my top manga of the year. Haiku, I've talked about a lot on my Instagram. For somebody who doesn't even like sports that much, that series and that, like, the anime and the manga had such a massive impact on me this year. I think there are so many themes woven into that series that are genuinely so good, and they're portrayed so well. And why do I, as somebody who doesn't like sports, never been into volleyball, like, so attached to the series? Like, there has to be a reason for that. And it's too good, honestly. The way I see this while I'm wearing my Gojo sweatshirt, I'll talk about that one in a second. Haiku, if I even just think, like, what quotes stand out to me, and it's like, if you were defeated today, what will you become tomorrow? What? I'm doing an art piece actually based on that quote. There's like other ones, like, I'm gonna misquote these because I don't have them memorized, but there's ones like, who gets to the top must start at the bottom. Like, there's so many important themes about, like, hard work and passion and never giving up, and it's just, the coming of age is too good. So Haiku manga is definitely my top read of the year. I'm only going to talk about the JJK manga because I'm wearing the Gojo sweatshirt. First of all, I love the JJK. I love the characters. There's so much of that series I loved. I will say I read the manga and I finished it, and the ending was very disappointing. Like, if I had to say the most disappointing read of the year, I think for me would be JJK, which sucks because it didn't have to be. That series had so much potential, and, you know, the writing had set up so many different scenarios the ending could have taken, and none of that happened. So for me, the ending, I think, kind of ruins the series a bit for me, but I love the characters. I love my Gojo sweatshirt and all my characters from JJK. Let's move on to some Storygraph graphics. So first one, for some reason, and I cannot figure out what is missing, Storygraph logs me 127 books instead of 128, but I know I read 128 because Goodreads is usually what I update first. So I think there's like one that didn't like convey properly in Storygraph, but we're just gonna go with Storygraph graphics because they're way cooler than anything Goodreads could put out. First, the average time to finish a book for me is 2 days. That is crazy. That's so fascinating to me to know that information, and wow, that's fast. I really like the little mood board they gave us. These are based on like what people on Storygraph have tagged the books I've read. So a lot of adventure, a lot of funny books, a lot of lightheartedness, inspiring books, emotional books. Dark is like a more significant chunk than I thought, and I really do think it's the JJK volumes that caused that. In terms of fiction or nonfiction, if you've met me, it's always 100% fiction. I am not really a nonfiction girly, and I know people are like, whoa, you need to learn, blah, 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 and it's really informative. I've been to school. Sorry, that was kind of mean. Like, I read for fun, guys. I read for fun. I read for entertainment. I do think nonfiction books have value. I want to read fiction. Okay. My average rating this year was a 4.69 or 4.7 on Goodreads. I had a lot of 5-star reads this year. So impressive. Almost like I'm trying to guess where on this bar chart. How do I read a bar graph? Maybe I do need to go back to school and read those nonfiction books. I'm kidding. I know how to read a bar chart. My humor is like off today. Guys, I'm an engineering major. Don't worry. I would say that's about a little over 90 books are 5-star reads. And then I really like that Storygraph gives you the ability to do your 4.25s and 3.5s and like half-star ratings. And nothing lower than a 3. There were a couple books I gave no ratings to. I do give no ratings sometimes if it's a problematic author and I don't want to boost or the ratings or drag them either. Like, I want it to count towards my reading goal because I read a book, but I won't give it a rating because I don't support these authors. Most read authors, of course, at the top are the 2 manga authors. God, I can't pronounce names. I'm so sorry. Footed Dave T is Haiku's author, and then Akutami is JJK's authors. I'm so sorry if I butchered those. So that's why they're the 2 highest, because each volume, there was 45 volumes in Haiku, and I think, what was it, a little bit over 30 for JJK. And then under that is Ali Hazelwood, my queen Ali Hazelwood, Love Theoretically, book of my life. I read a lot of her other books this year. In terms of genre, obviously, manga dominated the charts, but right under that, my usual suspect is fantasy. Sports is crazy. Sports is because of Haiku. And then you have young adult. Horror, I think, is because of JJK, and then romance, contemporary, and so on. And that is my 2024 reading wrapped. Wow, guys, what a year. It was an exceptional year for books being released this year. We had some incredible books come out this year. Read some incredible books, as I've shared with you guys. Let me know down below what some of your top reads of the year were, how your reading year looked like, what are your favorite and least favorite books of the year, anything you want to share, drop it down below. I want to know. And that is it for my 2024 reading wrap. I will see you guys next time with some 2025 books. Bye!